Time now to hit the back roads on Yamaha's all-new for 1999, the 1300 Royal Star Venture. This isn't the first time Yamaha's used the Venture name. However, other than the cases, this fully dressed touring bike shares very little with its predecessor. Powering the Venture is the same 1,294cc V4 found in all Royal Stars. However, bigger 32mm carbs, hotter cams, and better airflow elevate both this Royal Star's horsepower and torque figures above its siblings. The Venture also sports a new frame, air-adjustable suspension, and running gear, making it longer, stiffer, and taller than the rest of the Royal Star cruisers. Under the heading bells and whistles, behind the fork-mounted fairing you'll find a cruise control, AM/FM tape deck stereo with dual speakers. The passenger speakers are mounted to the sides of the backrest. There's also an accessory power outlet and intercom. CB radio and CD changer are optional. Recently, on an off-season tour of southern Georgia, we asked Larry Tate and Colin Fraser, two veteran journalists with Inside Motorcycles, to sample this Royal Star, and here's what they had to say after venturing out with this Venture.
It's kind of a new thing for Yamaha, and while it's a full-dress tour, it's a little different in concept. It has a fork-mounted fairing, for example. Although the weather protection is quite good with the blowers and so on, it's not done in that sort of integrated full jelly bean look that you're sort of used to from pure touring bikes.
Refrigerator.
Yeah, for the last few years. The fit finish is really good. I mean, they've made a real effort in the last few years with the Royal Star line to pick up to the absolute top quality stuff with that.
And this is not a cheap motorcycle, and that is important. The people who buy a bike like this are going to expect it to look really good.
Yeah. So I'd say it's a welcome addition to the heavyweight touring family, basically. Performance is considerably different from the other Royal Stars, which are what I would call more sort of pure boulevard cruiser type machines. The frame on this is basically completely different from the other Royal Stars. It's a much more solid platform. Got a little more ground clearance than the others do. The only thing I'd say negative about it is that occasionally at higher speeds and crosswinds especially, the front end feels a little vague, and that may be just because of this large fork-mounted fairing, which certainly feeds some weight, and if the wind is blowing crossways, it does tend to push on the fork.
And that's the one downside to a fork-mounted fairing. It has more effect on the front-end handling. And when Larry touched on the changed frame, I think it's a big improvement. Yeah. And although these bikes are not necessarily designed to be ridden hard, it is always fun to ride a bike on a winding road, and this one is more responsive and more confidence-inspiring than previous Royal Stars.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, it's a big motor. It's 1,300 cc's, and you don't expect it to spin very quickly. There's a rev limiter, so if you do wind it out, it tells you in no uncertain terms that it's time to stop and grab another gear. Mechanically, it's interesting in what they've done some rather inventive things. Unlike some big touring bikes, that the gas tank actually is in what you think of as the gas tank, so there's not much room down below for an air box, an induction system. So these little boxes down in here behind the leg shields are actually part of the air intake system. It gives a little more room for the motorcycle and carburetors to breathe. Well, it's rather an ingenious solution to a problem of getting some more power.
Well, packaging is an issue on these sort of retro cruisers, I think, where you're going to put everything and you don't want it to look like that refrigerator, and this is a good way to do it, and they seem to have integrated it with the rest of the styling cues of the motorcycle, but that's another subject.
Yeah.
The 50s American classic car meets Captain Nemo from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It's good to see the guy who styled the VMAX still has a place at Yamaha and gets to trot his drawing board out every once in a while.
Yeah, a lot of it's pretty radical stuff, and it's neat, you know, this sort of purple Bakelite dashboard here, and the dash is really cool, you know, very 50s Oldsmobile. It's electronic as opposed to an old needle, but it works, you know, it's really cool. Interesting shape in the front, as you say, this sort of Captain Nemo submarine look to the fairing is audacious, but I think it works. I quite like it. In terms of practicality of the bike as a touring machine, in spite of, you know, it's talking about power cruiser and looks being an important part of it, you still, if you're going to be touring, you have to have room to sit, which we've touched on already, and you have to have room for luggage and whatnot, and they've done a nice job with this. As you can see, it's kind of overhung by the top box and this grab rail thing here, but they've got these cute little one-touch locks. You just push that and the thing pops right open.
And there's enough clearance, which is the big trick.
That's right. Clearance is the hard part. So there's lots of room in there. And again, Colin, if you could pop the top box, you can see there's room in there for a couple of full-face helmets. It's quite large. Lots of room. The one thing it it doesn't have, and it should have as far as I'm concerned, is liners for the saddlebags, because when you get to wherever you're going, you have to take your luggage into the hotel, and you can't take the whole bike into the room with you, so you have to get your stuff out of there somehow.
And a lot of these sort of saddlebags are about the size of a gym bag, and these ones are a little bit bigger and longer, and that's nice, but your gym bags aren't going to fit in there.
Shape, that's right, yeah.
Somebody's going to make some money making liners for these.
For me, the upshifts would be the looks, which I think they've gone their own way with it, and it's pretty successful. It's quite nice, and I think they'll sell a lot of bikes just because it is a little bit different, as Colin was saying. And the other upshift for me would be the big improvement in performance on the rest of the Royal Star line. The engine is much nicer, the chassis is definitely improved, the brakes are pretty good. They just done a nice job of packaging it without worrying too much about making it look and forgetting about the rest of it.